David Hilbert, a man from East Prussia, born on the 23rd of January 1862. Hilbert came from two educated parents. From a very young age, Hilbert excelled in education. Nearing the end of his traditional schooling, he was split between his love for languages and mathematics. Of course, he went with mathematics, and in the autumn of 1880 he was enrolled into the University of Königsberg to pursue his career in mathematics. He quickly shot up the ranks and received a doctorate degree in 1885. In 1892, he married Kathy Jassoch, and they had a son named Franz. Unfortunately, Franz suffered from an undiagnosed psychological illness, which Hilbert saw as a heavy burden. He often called Franz a disappointment. In 1895, Hilbert was offered a job to be a professor of mathematics at the University of Göttingen. At the time, the University of Göttingen was seen as the leading school for mathematics and had given rise to Carl Friedrich Gauss and Bernhard Riemann. During this period of his career, he became peers with the likes of Alonzo Church and Emmy Noether. It was at this new university where he started churning out more and more works of mathematics. In 1900, he presented 23 unsolved mathematical problems to the International Congress of Mathematicians in Paris. Little did he know these problems would guide mathematicians for the rest of the 20th century. 2 years after the presentation, it was translated into English and published in the Bulletin of the American Mathematical Society. Hilbert was the first to pose challenges to mathematicians all around the world. He demanded answers, and so through the century, mathematicians like Kurt Gödel from Austria, Masayoshi Nagato from Japan, and Paul Cohan from America dedicated time to solving these problems. Hilbert's main job was to supervise doctoral students. At the Göttingen School, he supervised 69 students in total, many of them going on to be famous mathematicians. Many universities offered him jobs due to his very effective method of teaching. He commonly used examples and thought experiments to explain general methods. This is why he was able to produce such a strong group of scholars. One of Hilbert's famous thought experiments was called About the Infinity, presented at a lecture in 1929. Consider a hypothetical hotel with an infinite number of rooms, all of which are already full. When a finite amount of new guests arrive, you can shift the person in room 1 to room 2. Now we have a free room. For the second new guest, you can take the person in room 2 and move them into room 3, and so on. His third scenario was to imagine an infinite number of coaches filled with an infinite amount of guests waiting to get into the hotel. So to deal with the first coach, you would take the guest in the first room and move them to room 2, the guest in room 2 to room 4, and room 3 to room 18. For the second coach, the person in room 1 would go to 3, from 2 to 9, 3 to 27. The succession is in the prime numbers. For every cth coach, you would take the cth prime number to the power of the nth room. What Hilbert was trying to show was the counterintuitive nature of infinite sets. No matter how much you add to them, they will still be infinite. One of the more significant applications of Hilbert's work has been in Hilbert spaces, named after David Hilbert. Mathematicians used his work to extend vectors, algebra, and calculus from a 2D space and 3D space to a space with any finite or infinite number of dimensions. These spaces occur naturally and frequently in maths and physics, and is a crucial tool for the subjects like partial differentiation and quantum mechanics. This brings us to the latter of his life. As Hitler started to rise throughout Germany, the Nazi regime passed through schools and universities where Jewish people, such like Hilbert, were pushed out of their positions and essentially out of a job. Shortly after this, Hilbert passed away on the 14th of January 1943 in Göttingen. Not many people turned up to his funeral, and the news of his death wasn't known until months after. His name may not be thrown around with the likes of Newton and Einstein, but his contributions to mathematics has resulted in directing the subject for an entire century, the production of many outstanding mathematicians, and the foundations for many areas in modern mathematics.